The rise and disappearances among Europe's most chilling criminal cases lies the story of András Pándy, a Hungarian-born pastor who settled in Belgium and went on to murder members of his own family. For years, he lived as a respected religious leader, while behind closed doors he abused, manipulated, and ultimately killed. The press would later call him Father Bluebeard, a grotesque nickname that captured both his position as a man of faith and the horror of his crimes. Early life and move to Belgium. András Pándy was born in 1927 in Chab, a town that was then part of Czechoslovakia. He grew up in a Hungarian-speaking household where religion shaped much of daily life. Those who knew him in his youth described him as intelligent but distant, with an air of superiority even at a young age. After World War II, Pandy left his homeland and eventually moved to Belgium. He studied theology and became a Protestant pastor, taking up a position in the city of Ghent. There he found a community among Hungarian immigrants and quickly built a reputation as a man of authority, education, and moral standing. For outsiders, he appeared to embody stability. He married, raised children, and carried himself as a devoted servant of faith. Yet beneath the surface, his family lived in fear of his authoritarian control. The public mask of a pastor. In Ghent, Pandy lived in a modest house and maintained his image as a strict but upright man. His parishioners often described him as stern but knowledgeable, someone who could deliver sermons with conviction. For decades, he successfully cultivated the appearance of a traditional father figure, head of the household, provider, and community leader. Behind closed doors, however, his home was ruled by intimidation. Pandy was manipulative, verbally abusive, and sexually exploitative. His children later revealed that he used religion as a weapon, twisting biblical authority to justify his dominance. He discouraged any independence and demanded loyalty. Those who defied him faced cruelty and eventually disappearance. The Vanishing Family between 1986 and 1990, 6 people close to Pandy mysteriously vanished. His second wife, Edith Toth, his daughters Reka and Timea, his son Andras Jr., and his stepchildren Ágnes and Daniel. Each time, Pandy had a ready explanation. He told neighbors that his wife had left him, that his children had moved abroad, that his stepchildren wanted nothing to do with the family anymore. Because he was a pastor, many believed him. Even when suspicions arose, few dared to question his word directly. But the truth was far darker. One by one, Pandy murdered his family members, sometimes with the assistance of his surviving daughter, Ágnes. Together, they disposed of the bodies with horrifying efficiency, using chemicals to dissolve flesh and breaking bones to eliminate evidence. The cycle of abuse. Pandy's crimes were not limited to murder. Accounts from surviving relatives revealed years of incest, coercion, and psychological abuse. He treated his daughters not as children, but as property, blurring the boundaries of family and faith in ways that left deep scars. Ágnes, in particular, was groomed and dominated by her father for years. Under his manipulation, she became both victim and accomplice. She later admitted to helping kill family members and dispose of their remains. Her testimony would prove vital in exposing the full scope of her father's crimes.
Ágnes Speaks Out.
In 1992, Ágnes finally broke the silence. She went to the police and confessed that she and her father had murdered members of their family. Her statement shocked investigators, who until then had little concrete evidence to explain the string of disappearances. Police searched the house in Ghent and uncovered blood traces, chemical residues, and inconsistencies in Pandy's stories. They reopened missing persons cases and began building a case against the respected pastor who had hidden behind the pulpit for so long. Still, it would take years before Pandy was arrested. Investigators struggled to piece together the fragmented evidence, and Agnes's confession, while detailed, required corroboration. Only in 1997 did authorities finally move to charge him with multiple murders. The arrest and public reaction. The arrest of András Pándy stunned Belgium. Parishioners who had once trusted him were horrified to learn that he was suspected of killing his wife, children, and stepchildren. The press seized on the story, dubbing him Father Bluebeard, a reference to the fairy tale figure who murdered his wives in secret chambers. For the public, the betrayal was especially grotesque. A pastor sworn to guide his flock had turned his own household into a place of terror and death. The trial, Pandy's trial, began in 2002 and drew intense media attention. He was charged with 6 murders, incest, and abuse. The courtroom became a stage for some of the most disturbing testimonies in Belgian legal history. Ágnes testified against her father, recounting in detail how she had been forced to help him commit and cover up the murders. Prosecutors painted Pandy as a narcissistic tyrant who saw family members as disposable obstacles. The defense tried to discredit Ágnes, suggesting that she had fabricated the entire story and that she was the real killer. But forensic evidence, including traces of blood, records of missing relatives, and corroborating testimony, undermined his claims. In the end, the jury convicted him on all counts. Pandy was sentenced to life imprisonment, while Ágnes, whose role was both complicit and coerced, received a lighter sentence. The court recognized her as both accomplice and victim, manipulated since childhood by her domineering father. Personality and psychology. Psychologists who studied Pandy described him as manipulative, authoritarian, and devoid of empathy. He displayed traits of narcissism and psychopathy, combining intellectual intelligence with an emotional void. Religion in his hands became not a source of morality, but a shield. He exploited his role as pastor to silence doubts and project righteousness. For his victims, this manipulation made resistance even harder. For outsiders, it made suspicion almost unthinkable. Imprisonment and death. András Pándy never confessed to his crimes. Even after conviction, he maintained his innocence, portraying himself as the victim of a conspiracy. He refused to acknowledge responsibility for the murders or the abuse. In 2013, he died in prison at the age of 86. He left behind no remorse, no confession, and no closure for the families of his victims. Legacy. The case of András Pándy remains one of Belgium's darkest criminal sagas. It is remembered not only for the brutality of the murders, but for the profound betrayal at its core. Pandy was not an anonymous predator. He was a father, a husband, and a pastor, roles that symbolized trust, care, and protection. Instead, he corrupted them all. The case forced Belgian society to confront uncomfortable truths. How could so many disappearances go unquestioned? How could neighbors, church members, and even authorities accept his explanations for so long? Respectability had acted as a cloak, allowing him to continue undetected. Today, his story stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the ease with which appearances can deceive. In the annals of European crime, the name of Father Bluebeard endures as a symbol of hypocrisy, cruelty, and the darkest depths of human manipulation.